We know what you've come for, and now we're going to give it to you. You're listening to the No Such Thing podcast.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Man, it looks sunny there.
Yeah, it's a little bright. I'm in Big Bear, California.
Big Bear. Okay, where is that on the geographically for all of?
So it's Southern California, but it's the mountains in Southern California. So it's near Riverside. San Bernardino is the county. So yeah, it's it's about halfway from LA to the edge of California, and then going towards Arizona.
Now, how far is that from San Diego? Because that's the only place I've ever been in.
Yeah, it's about maybe 2-3 hours from San Diego.
All right, okay. Yeah, I was in San Diego in the early 2000s, and I loved it. I mean, I fell in love with the place, but my friend no longer lives there, so I have no reason to go there anymore. But
I see.
So, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now, let's just straight into it. I have a little... It's last minute because I thought I was going to be interviewing Jason, and then he said, no, you'll be interviewing Jeremy. So I had to do a quick IMBD search to find out what your filmography was, and I have a whole list here, and you've got quite a rap sheet here. So you're the director and associate producer of Cannabis versus Cancer, director and associate producer for Cannabis and Your Doctor, and director and associate producer for About Cannabis and Cancer. Is that
right?
Is that different from the first one, Cannabis versus Cancer? Is that a follow-up?
So it's kind of like a series. We shot a number of interviews, and we basically I've been in the cannabis industry a really long time. I've done all kinds of different things in it, and it's led me to meet some really interesting characters, and a couple of those people are healers, so to speak, or their mission in life is to try and help people that are ill with cannabis. And so we told the story of a couple of those people, and then a few of their more compelling patients. And then I also tried to make it a point that we gave information that was useful to people. I've watched a lot of the other documentaries, and a lot of times it's like, hey, good news, cannabis can help you with this or that. But then they don't really tell you how to do that in any sort of way. So we wanted to kind of tackle that as well. And then the doctor actually was just a really fortunate interview that we got. We were supposed to interview someone else. They couldn't do it. And so they kind of instructed us to this person. And she has like a program for educating other physicians about cannabis where they can earn actual degrees or actual credits for their degrees and for their careers. So we kind of just did that as a side project for her and to try and help her advance what she was doing.
Okay. So now that was your actually, well, I'm recording, but I like to have I'm recording on my H4n Pro. I'm recording on a third party, but I like to have all my bases covered, so I'm recording on Skype as well. But so they were your I lost you for a second. So they were your first documentaries?
Yeah, those are my debut films with Jason. And Jason and I have probably almost 10 projects kind of in the works or released. So we have the UFO one that just came out.
Right.
And then, that's called I Want to Believe. And then the other film, our most popular film right now is Don't Call Me Bigfoot. And both of those are films that are more of my passion. Jason is an excellent filmmaker, but a lot of these things like the cannabis films, that comes from my background. and a lot of the other projects we're doing are kind of things that I'm really interested in that just kind of overlap with projects that he wanted to do. And so it worked out, you know.
Okay, so you're originally from California?
Yes, I am. My dad is from Scotland.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he is.
I can see it in you.
I can tell that you're from somewhere out there.
Yeah, I'm from Northern Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a hard time in the sun, so I probably wouldn't do well in California. I'd probably just be getting like basal cell skin cancer every 6 months. But you're also the founder of California Botanicals.
That's actually one of the people we interviewed. So when we interviewed two people for the cannabis films, they have kind of trying to transition into the legalization of cannabis. It's popular here in California right now.
Right.
And so they've had to kind of transition from having like an underground company to now a legit company that, you know, can do business legally.
Yeah.
And so that's Pete's company. He was in Cannabis versus Cancer.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. Now, I've always been fascinated with California, like coming from Ireland and stuff. You know, my mission was to actually end up in the West Coast, but you know, I ended up in Boston. You know, typical, you know, typical Irish guy comes to Boston and you know doesn't go any further. But you know, it's been kind of good to me. So, but I mean, California has always been the leader in these kind of things. It starts in California, then you know I think I saw doggy daycare. The first time I ever saw it was in California, and people laughed at it. But 15 years later, it was on the East Coast, and it's a normal thing now. But yeah. I've always been fascinated with that state. Like a few weeks ago, I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I did it with a VR set on, you know, the Oculus Go.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like sitting in a movie theater. You know, it's just huge. I don't know how it works, how the physics of it work, but it seemed your perspective is you're sitting in a movie theater, and you look your left and right, and you've got the chairs sitting there, and if you look to your six, you've got like a projection screen and stuff. But I mean, I remember watching that. Yeah, I love the Oculus Go, but I remember just sitting there and like, oh god, I want to live in LA, because all of Quentin Tarantino's movies are so like they're eye candy, you know, and the way he shoots them, it just makes LA look so appealing, especially in that era. You know, it was like
for sure.
Was that the late 60s?
Yeah, kind of like early 70s, maybe.
I think it was, yeah. And he had everything down to a T. I mean, have you seen the movie?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh,
he did an excellent job.
The ending, it was just like, I was baffled. Well, I'm not going to give any spoilers. People should have already seen it, and it should be, you know. But anyway,
I thought it was a clever way of doing things, you know.
When that can hit her on the nose, I was almost sick. Then that was it for me.
He's a unique guy, you know, like a lot of people aspire to be like that, right? So,
have you met him?
I've never met him. No, I have a friend that met him, like spent a whole night with him, you know.
Really?
Oh yeah, he said it was quite an adventure.
I would say he seems kind of weird, you know, but in a good way.
Yeah, you know, they had a good time. That's all I know. But
so how did you get into
growing up in LA, a lot of what you were saying is I you know, would see places I know in movies, and it was just a thing that you're like, oh yeah, that's down the street. Oh, you know, like in Terminator or in, you know, all kinds of different movies. And I didn't realize that that's like a special thing for us until I got older, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's like when they do a movie in Boston or something, you're like, oh, there's that bridge and that's that street, and everyone's so proud of it, but for you guys, it's all the time. I mean,
yeah, all the time. Yeah,
every street's been filmed, you know. But yeah, so what got you into directing? I mean, what do you want to give me a bit of a bio on yourself?
So you know, growing up in the cannabis industry, you kind of spend a lot of time at home, maybe waiting for people to come by, and so you can sell them pot.
Right.
And a lot of that time is spent watching movies. So. I have like a really, and of course, growing up, movies were always something that really connected with me. And so I've been a really, really big fan of film for a while, and to the point where I didn't really like watching TV because I hated the way that it was shot and like the production value of it.
Horrible.
And just a lot of it was really bad. And now it's all changed. But for a long time, I was just into film. That's it. I just wanted to watch movies. And then documentaries have also always been a really good thing for me because people's personal stories connect with me. I've also in the cannabis industry, you meet a lot of people that have a really terrible story, a lot of times associated with some sort of medical condition or something that they're battling. And that really connects with people. That was why the first few films, when I had the opportunity to do some projects with Jason, I was like, let's do something that really could maybe help people. And then we can kind of get into these other more fun subjects. And that, like the Bigfoot thing, it's just, I've watched so many Bigfoot movies and, Bigfoot documentaries and shows and all of this. And, I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan. I listen to all the different stuff on like that. And I think a lot like him. So I've gone kind of back and forth where I was like, oh, this might be real. And then, this seems like it's totally not real. And then you kind of start learning stuff, especially doing this project. And like one of the big things for me was when I started to find out how many species are newly discovered every year, and some of the size of some of those species. It was staggering to me. I didn't realize that it was as common as it is, and that some of these things are big, and I just feel like one of these Bigfoot stories from all over the world, it could turn out to be something we discover someday. So that's always made it interesting to me.
Well, you touch on a good point there, the size thing. I didn't know that they were discovering new species that were big. I thought it was just like insects and things under the water. And so you're saying that they're discovering actual sizable mammals?
Yeah, I'm not remembering the exact detail, but it was either like last year or the year before they discovered some sort of orangutan.
Oh yeah, pandak, the pandak, right?
So that's a pretty decent size. It's not Bigfoot size,
right?
But it's bigger than I thought. I thought most of these new discoveries would be like small insects or things that they thought were extinct. That then oh no, it turns out it's not extinct, but like entirely new species, also including just fossils of things where they're like, oh, this has already lived its whole life, died, and now we're just finding the fossils, and this is the first time we're discovering this as well.
Yeah.
So all that's really interesting to me.
Well, for fossils to form, there has to be a unique set of conditions. I don't know the science behind it, but people ask why there's no fossils of Bigfoot. I'm like, Jesus, I mean, you have to have so many perfect conditions to form a fossil, and that's not even, so that's why there's no fossils of Bigfoot. It's like,
yeah, and animals could eat a lot of the meat and bones or whatever, and a lot of that, any of those bones might just dissolve away. Animals have pretty incredible digestive systems. So
okay, so what we're here to really talk about is your documentary on Amazon called "Don't Call Me Bigfoot." Now, where did that name come from?
So that Jason actually came up with that name, and it was kind of a play on another title from another movie. But in the Bigfoot community, when we were interviewing one of the people, they kind of told us that they don't really like that name. It's all it's not really like a racist or like a really offensive kind of name, but it's kind of like the low end of the totem pole as far as the various names. There's all these different Indian names, all these different legends that like have cool. And honestly, the Bigfoot name is kind of attached to a hoax.
Yes.
So
Sasquatch is our best bet as far as that goes. That's the closest we get to
exactly
what the Native Americans called it.
Mm-hmm. That's what mostly in California, especially, that's what people like to hear.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I like that name better. It's not quite attached to the, as you say, the whole hoax thing, you know. But so you started to do. How does one get a documentary on Amazon? That seems like quite an accomplishment. I mean, you must have some friends in high places.
You know, it's easier than you think. Jason actually has quite a number of films already on Amazon, and he has kind of the relationship, but he got started with them early on. And, you know, a lot of it is just kind of following the rules. You know, they have like a certain standard that they're trying to accomplish. And they're taking a lot less now than when Jason started. But, you know, they wanted content. You know, they're a new streaming service in relative to like Netflix or you know, some of the other, even like HBO, that maybe they have that long history of being a company, but now they're into streaming. Amazon is kind of, you know, new to it. Even their original shows are, you know, these newer ones that they have, they're really good. They're making a big effort to kind of step up their standards. And so that's mostly all that it is, you know, kind of doing a quality project that they would be willing to accept. And, you know, you can kind of go on their website and research it and figure out a little bit more of how to get started. It's not very difficult.
Yeah. For me, it seems like quite an accomplishment. It's cool that you have documentaries on Amazon now. Are all of your documentaries hosted on Amazon Prime?
Yes, right now all of them are on Amazon Prime. I believe Jason was saying that some of our projects are going on Tubi. Oh yeah, and you know
that's on the Oculus Go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's part of the Oculus Go thing.
That's cool. I like that kind of service. In fact, I would want to see our projects on as many different platforms as possible. So.
Are you on YouTube as well? Can you buy and rent it on YouTube?
So we're going to do a thing on YouTube at first where we're going to try and get our film to certain different people's channels where it would be, you know, valuable to them. And we can maybe get a little bit more out of it. And then from that, Jason has a YouTube channel, but we don't have like a huge following on YouTube yet. So we're working on that.
Yeah, me too. It's a very valuable. I plan to put this. I'm going to put it up in my podcast, but I plan to actually, you know, put the live broadcast or the visual broadcast on YouTube as well. So, tell me about the whole Bigfoot thing. That's what I'm really interested in. So, what is your history of Bigfoot, or is it just something you're like myself? You've never seen anything, you've never had an experience, but you just are really fascinated in the whole phenomenon?
So I've gone looking for Bigfoot a little bit, but I've never had an experience. I would really like to have one. But California, we're pretty close to the Pacific Northwest forest there, you know. Even in Los Angeles, you could drive there within a day. California is like such an enormous place.
It's long.
You know, there's so many people, and it's such a big, you know, state that we have a lot of different variety of places. You know, you got the beach, we got snow, we got all these different, you know, the desert, it's everything, right? So I've traveled up, and especially in the cannabis industry, I've traveled up north to like Humboldt, to Southern Oregon. And the first time you see that forest, you start to be like, oh, I guess maybe there could be a Bigfoot.
Yeah,
I had no idea of the scale of the size of it. And you go around there and you see animals all the time. And especially talking to people that live there, they tell you stories about, you know, bears or, you know, big cats that just come up on their property. Huge animals. And you would think, oh, there's no way that's out there, but they are. And a lot of them have Bigfoot stories about this and that. And it's really interesting to kind of see from where you're in the city, and it's like very, you know, looked as like a kind of a hoax. You got to be naive to believe in something like that because they're in the city, and they don't experience any of that kind of stuff. Those people out in the wilderness have a totally different opinion on a lot of that stuff. Some of them also don't believe, full on, but right. It's a lot more common out there. And for me, I love these kind of subjects. I really want them to be true.
Yeah.
And so I want to see, what's the latest footage? Oh, this looks like a new movie coming out. I want to see it. I'm optimistic that I'm going to see something that is undisputable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I feel that way about all kinds of things. My dad being from Scotland, when we traveled over there, I went looking for the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
And I love fantasy. I love everything about that kind of subject matter. And some of the things we have in real life, are things you would think are fantastic if you didn't know they were already real.
Octopuses.
That's one of the main ones with the changing of color. And
yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable, some of the stuff that authentically exists. And then the mythical things that a lot of people think are true, but just they haven't been able to prove. I think the Siberian tiger is one of those ones that even legit scientists believe, could someday be discovered.
Oh, really? So, I thought that was a thing. I thought that Siberian tigers were actually real.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it. I think it might have been real a long time ago, and then they just can't. They think they don't exist. But then every once in a while, there's a report of one, and they think maybe they do still exist.
Well, it's like that. It's like that shark, Megalodon.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk about that being actually real because they found a tooth washed up on a beach somewhere, and it was like the size of your fist. But the whole Bigfoot thing, the most for me, the most compelling thing about Bigfoot is that it might actually be true. I'm 90% sure. I go up and down, but at the minute I'm 90%. I always go up and down in percentages. Like a month ago, I was like 75%, but after hearing some people, like policemen, like Navy SEALs, forestry workers, fishermen, people that don't have anything to gain by telling these stories. And I don't know if you saw the How to Hunt channel with that guy, Dave Lisdall. What the hell's his first name?
I think I might have seen that.
Yeah, he's just a guy in Canada up in BC, and he's a big game hunter. And Steve Lisdall. And he has his own channel, and his grandfather had a sighting way back when, and his grandfather was a B-52 pilot. So he always had a lot of reverence for his grandfather, and he told him a story like just before he died. And it was a Bigfoot story up there in BC when he was doing some forestry work. And then Steve had his own couple of experiences. So he has his own YouTube channel. It started off as a big game hunting channel, and then people kept asking him about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. So he started to spill the beans, and now he's an advocate for... And this guy is like, I don't know, I believe him. And I believe a lot of these people, they're seeing something. They're not just saying nothing. They're not just lying. It's just...
I totally agree.
Yeah, the law of averages says that not all of these people can be seeing the same thing, smelling the same smells, and hearing the same sounds, and just be making it up, unless there's some kind of like collective psychosis going on. But I think that's less likely than that they're actually seeing something.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that a lot of the stories are, authentic, whether they're really seeing what they think they're seeing or whether, a lot of those are going to be just kind of, mistakes.
Yeah, right.
But a lot of these stories are just so incredible. Like you said, people that would be considered expert witnesses or professional, professional observers, I think is the term. But, they're doctors, they're policemen, military kind of people. They have positions of authority. It's risky for them to even talk about some of this stuff, it's compelling. The stories that they have to say so often are very similar. Like some of the people I mentioned in our documentary, the locations of where some of these stories are told, it's uncanny how many end up being all in the same kind of location. Yeah. And I think a lot of that leads towards, somewhere, maybe some of these are not going to turn out to be true, but there's so many, like you were saying, there's so many and all over the world that, come on, one of these is going to be discovered, Yeah,
the only other thing that I can think is it's some kind of archetypal, hallucination, that something that we have known in our past, but then there's like multiple people see it at the same time, and there's like physical evidence, they've seen footprints and they've actually had injury from one of these animals. What do you think about when you watch especially the new versions of it, when you watch the footage of Paddy, the Patterson Gimlin footage, what do you see there when you look at that?
So I go both ways on it, like it isn't great footage in a lot of ways, in that it's kind of grainy, and it's one of those shots that a lot of times seems kind of not real, where you're kind of in the perfect place to really get it in frame. It's like very good. But I've also seen it broke down so many times.
MK Davis
stuff. Yeah, it's the arm lengths and all the different, how they kind of thought it was a female, and then now I'm seeing that they think maybe there's a second Bigfoot on her back. Like, this is all really interesting stuff, and if I look at it with those thoughts, I can see a lot of the things that they're saying, and so it's one of those things we'll never know. It'll always be a story, but it's still the most compelling video when you talk to people in this culture about what's the best stuff you can see. It's still one of the ones they always mention.
And they're all just like, oh, it's a suit. Like, I mean,
like somebody said, a lot of people have come forward saying they were in the suit. So like, it could be a suit, but not all of them are telling the truth. So it's just one of those interesting stories, right?
And words is suit, Somebody would have produced it by now. And MK Davis did a great breakdown on it. I don't know if you follow his YouTube channel, but he did a really good breakdown, and he did all of the video editing and like zoomed in and analyzed every frame. It was very interesting.
I love those. I try to watch them all. And I feel like there's a little bit to take from everything, that is it seems undeniable in so many ways that had to be a real shot. But it just the way it just looks kind of fake. And I know that a lot of things that are real sometimes don't look real. I've been involved in a lot of things like that, where, people thought they weren't authentic. And then, you being kind of closely involved, you're like, no, that was 100% real. It leads me to believe it. So,
yeah. Well, especially when you hear Bob Gimlin speak, I mean, this guy's in his 70s, I guess.
Right.
And I don't know, I just don't see any holes in his story. He doesn't seem disingenuous, to me. Now, you had Nick Redfern. He's a big name in the paranormal kind of UFO community. I've heard his name a lot in the, since I started listening to podcasts. He's come up again and again and again. English guy, Nick Redfern, he's in the Don't Call Me Bigfoot documentary.
Yes. So that was kind of coincidental. We were doing a documentary on UFOs. That's the I Want to Believe. That's our newest release on Amazon. And that one is actually picked up by a distributor, so you have to pay for it right now on Amazon to rent it or to buy it.
Oh, really?
But all of our other ones are free if you have a subscription for shipping or whatever. But we were interviewing quite a number of ufologists for that film, and Nick Redfern was one of them. And so we kind of like hit two birds with one stone there. We were like, let's ask you about Bigfoot, do you mind? And he was really, really gracious, a really nice guy. And he has, some really interesting focuses, like a little bit different than the normal areas of interest. So he was really a really interesting guy to talk to. We didn't get a long interview with him. That's why he's not in it a ton, but it was interesting to talk to him about it.
Now, the lady, is it Danielle Winkler?
Yes.
That's a red-haired lady. She's in both documentaries?
Yes, she's also in both documentaries. Now, and it was the same situation.
Oh, really? I haven't heard her before, and I saw her in both documentaries.
You know, I mentioned it to her, and she was passionate. Like, growing up, she lives in Arrowhead. And so living in a forest kind of area, you kind of might be more interested in the whole Bigfoot phenomenon. So it was a thing that was, you know, a passion for her. So it worked out.
And then Matt Squatch. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Matt.
Yeah. Matt Squatch has a really great YouTube channel.
Yeah, I subscribed.
He is. He's just like, you know, he reminds me of like one of those really lovable characters on one of those TV shows about Bigfoot, where he has an entirely genuine fascination with it and a very, like, you know, authentic approach to where we could talk about the very reasonable and, you know, fact-based aspects of Bigfoot, or we could talk about some of the wild, crazy ideas, and he's into it all. Really? So he was a really great interview, and he was really nice. He, you know, gosh, we must have spent almost 2 hours talking. So yeah, it was really, really great.
So now, what is your view on Bigfoot? Where do you stand on what that thing is? And
so, yeah, a lot, like, some people think it's human, like maybe a human hybrid, and then some people kind of think that it's a primate. I lean towards if we discover any of these, I lean towards primate personally.
Right.
We've discovered other primates that were new within the last 10 years, probably, you know, numerous within the last 10 years. And it wouldn't be out of the question that we discover more in, you know, the next 10 or more. However, a lot of these stories of Bigfoot make him sound very human. And we have discovered some of these really interesting fossil records of humans that we didn't think existed. So I don't put it out of the question. It's unlikely to me. You know, I'd say I'm like 70-30 primate human. You know, so it's something we may discover, and it wouldn't be far-fetched to me with the other kind of things that we've been learning about early humans and other, you know, Neanderthal and other, you know, creatures of that time. But I think it's much more likely that we discover another primate in one of these places where they have Bigfoot type stories.
But it has to have some kind of human intelligence in order to, like, avoid detection, right?
It might, but I don't think these other primates that we discovered had any sort of special hiding powers or whatever.
Really?
You know, it just happened. You know, there was like some sort of 6-foot gray ape that I read about, and it was a while ago that it was discovered, but that's pretty big. And, you know, these kind of things, you would think they're impossible, but there's proof of these things happening. But the giant squid, you know, giant. You know, there's huge things. I saw somebody talking about a cavern that they just recently discovered. It's like inside some mountain, and you can fit all of New York City inside this.
Wow,
that's how big it is, or at least the skyscrapers of New York City. You know, I don't remember the exact details, but these are huge things, huge discoveries that, you know, it makes me think we just really don't have as tight of a grasp of what's all out there as we would think we would have at this day and age, you know?
Well, what I liked about your documentary, Jeremy, is that it was very, you just sat and talked to people, right? Now, these other documentaries on not finding Bigfoot, the other one, Bigfoot Expedition, was it? and they brought in all this technology and centered on this, and they had all of this heat-seeking equipment and
right,
and they bring all this stuff in, and for me that. I don't know. It seems like it's disingenuous. They know they're not going to find it, but they had that heat signature. I'm not sure if you saw it. It's I can't even remember the names.
I've seen quite a few things like what you're talking about.
It was on the Travel Channel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
like one of those Finding Bigfoot or Expedition Bigfoot.
Expedition Bigfoot, I think it was.
Yeah, one of these ones.
They bring all these experts in, and they're like. The next show they're going to find Bigfoot and stuff. But what I liked about your show is it was much more honest. It was just sitting talking to people who had experiences or had theories about Bigfoot. You weren't trying to go in there and solve the mystery.
Yeah, because we didn't want to sensationalize it at all.
Right, and I like that kind of stuff because it's more honest. And now the.
For me, I've watched all those shows too, and I just think that, there's enough of that out there. That's a different project. I love to go out into the woods.
Oh yeah,
play these games, but they never find Bigfoot. Right? You always watch these shows. They see a little something maybe, but it's never what you really want to see out of something like that. So for me, it's like a lot of build up for no reward at the end, and. I think that leaves kind of the viewer with a weird feeling, and a lot of us just really want to get down to the real nuts and bolts of this. There's enough serious stuff to talk about with Bigfoot that you don't have to go and do all this other stuff,
They do they do more harm than good in my eyes, because they bring it to the public and then they don't have anything to show, and then people are just like, yeah, we knew it, it's bullshit.
Yeah, every show it's kind of the same thing, where there's maybe some little thing that you could hold on to, but the large majority of people are disappointed.
So let's talk about your new documentary on aliens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one I just found out it was released this morning. So
I saw the trailer.
Oh, very good. Yeah. So there's a convention up here in Big Bear where I live called the Alien Snowfest. And Jason and I kind of timed it when all these UFO kind of people are all here in town for the convention, that we did some interviews with them for our project. And, we signed up with Nick Pope. He was our main guy.
He's a big name. And
I like his approach. It's very serious. It's very nuts and bolts. No woo-woo, really. He wants to kind of talk about stuff you can go look up on your own. And he, with all this new UFO stuff that's been happening recently, it was really kind of cool to go to the convention and hear, they all have a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about, So it was really cool. And we got a bunch of really great names on there. We were able to kind of focus on a couple of cool topics. Nick Pope helped us with the USS Nimitz and that whole story of the Tic Tac UFO.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we had him kind of go over our United States government program that's called Project ATIP, and a lot of the details in that. And then also this film is different than others too, because we kind of got into their history, why are they as a person into this whole UFO culture, and so Nick kind of told us his whole story, and Redfern as well, and a number of other people that we talked to kind of gave us a little history of their past, and I'd never hear those stories. I watch all the UFO documentaries too, and it's a lot of them are very good, and a lot of them are kind of whatever, so we took a different approach with this one too, and it's very similar to the Bigfoot thing. And just we have a lot of bigger names, really well-known ufologists.
Yeah.
And we also got to get into something that I've found really interesting. My dad was really into religion growing up, and the Fatima story.
Oh yeah, in Spain, right?
Yeah, and we had L.A. Marzulli on, and he has this huge connection to it and so much insight. it was really, really interesting to hear and see all the stuff that he had on all of that historic event. So I found that just personally really great, and we were able to kind of put that in the film a little bit too. So,
yeah, I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You know, I dare I say our best thing, you know, so far, but the Bigfoot one's pretty good too.
Yeah, I liked it. Now, what's your next project?
So we have a number of other ones. We have a compare and contrast on the two cultures of ufology and cryptozoology.
Right.
And that's coming soon to Amazon. And then we have, so I have a background of like being into MMA and martial arts and all that stuff.
Oh, you're a total Joe Rogan fan.
Yeah, right. So very early days, I was into all of that. And so I have a friend who is, he's had a really up and down experience trying to be a professional fighter. And so we have a fighting documentary that's kind of with him and a few other people that we interviewed about their history of martial arts and kind of trying to do that as a profession. And then also the other things that kind of are byproducts of that help you in life in general.
Right.
We have a bullying documentary coming out with one of those people. She has this really a crazy story of being bullied as a young age and then overcoming it with martial arts. And now she teaches women and kids classes of martial arts, like authentic stuff, to overcome bullying and you know, self-consciousness and other things. And we have a psychedelic documentary that we haven't finished yet, but that one's coming soon. Psychedelic as medicine. You know, being in California, Oakland has legalized, decriminalized, I think that's the actual term, psychedelic mushrooms for medicine, and a few other things. And it's really, the science on that is astounding. Johns Hopkins is doing all this research on it, and it's extremely unique and you know, compelling stuff. So we have a documentary on that. Documentary on women's pro wrestling that pro wrestling is something I grew up with and I love it, and the women's pro wrestling is just blowing up right now. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So we got one on that. We have a few other cannabis ones. We're doing a series of Cannabis Pioneers. So I know quite a lot of people that were before the medical cannabis even came to California, and you know, were risking their lives doing all kinds of stuff like writing books, and you know, they were very involved in the whole culture of cannabis when it was very risky. So we have a few different things that we're doing on Cannabis Pioneers. I feel like there's some other ones too, but you know, that's good enough for now. That's all I can really remember.
It sounds really cool. It's a pity about the whole cannabis thing, because when I was younger, I was really into it, and then when I got older, I can't touch it. It just makes me a paranoid wreck. Same with mushrooms and stuff. I mean, I was really into that shit when I was younger, but something happened in my 30s that I just can't touch it anymore. I
understand.
For me, it's not. For me, it's not medicinal anymore. It's just it's just like a night of you know, conflict or something. I don't know.
Right.
It sucks.
So right now, really popular in California is non-psychoactive cannabis. It's called cannabidiol or CBD.
CBD, yeah.
Right.
It's
so a lot of
here
people are using that. And, you know, it really helps with pain. So for a lot of people that have maybe chronic, you know, knee pain or some things like that, it's very big in the MMA world. Also, a lot of fighters have used it to help them with various different pain-related illnesses.
Yeah, now for people listening, there's like so much CBD. Like even in every gas station here has CBD, like 7-Eleven and stuff, and it's everywhere. But is there?
Some's better than others,
right? So what do you look for? I mean, like, what do you stay away from?
So what I would do personally is I would look for a brand that is promoted by somebody you trust. So. A lot of these ones that you find in the gas stations, they're doing tests here, and you know, I think it was like 70 or 80% of them were not accurately labeled, where they had less or more CBD than they were supposed to, and some had no CBD at all.
Really?
So, yeah. So you got to be very careful with a lot of those places that are selling it. There's not a lot of laws against it right now. So that's why you see it everywhere, from gas stations to, liquor stores.
Yeah.
But or I would say order online from a company that somebody you trust is promoting. And there's enough of that out there now that shouldn't be too difficult to find.
Well, hey, Jeremy, I appreciate you coming on the show, and it's great to have you. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I used to do a lot of interviews in the cannabis industry, and now I'm just getting back into it in the film industry. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, I will follow up, and I can't wait to see your new show, and I'll be in contact again.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'd love it.
Jeremy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
All the best.